Stuka Joe here. This is what I call a kill two birds with a stone video. On the one hand, it's a wargaming video, and I'll show you one example found in the playbook of the last 100 yards. And on the other hand, it is an experimental video where I will be shooting this video in cinematic mode. For those of you who are interested, that's 24 frames per second, 1080p with a shutter speed of 1/48 and an ISO of 32, filming from an iPhone 11 Pro using Filmic Pro, which I made a demonstration video the other day as to how to use it to film wargaming videos. We will be conducting the example found at page 5 of the playbook, 24.2 platoon activation. The example uses board number 3 and consists of 8 units. There's 6 American units, 3 squads for platoon number 1, and 3 squads that compose platoon number 2, both platoons of Able Company, signified by the red background in their platoon number. The Germans have 2 units of platoon 1, squad 1 and squad 2 in building hexes. In the example, the American player wins the initiative and becomes the active player and selects Able Company, which is composed of the 2 platoons that you see on the map, and will now execute a coordination die roll. And the Americans need 8 or more in order to be able to activate both platoons at the same time. But the roll is a 6, so the coordination attempt is unsuccessful. As a result, the Americans have to activate each platoon sequentially. Now, had that coordination roll been successful, the Americans could have conducted action with any and or all units of both platoons, as well as eligible ad hoc units, before calling for reaction by the Germans. So the Americans activate the first platoon first and conduct maneuver actions with the first and second squads of the first platoon. The units are moved as so, and in this game we marked activated units by rotating them 90 degrees. The Americans do nothing with the third squad at this time, leaving it in essence in reserve. And because they did not conduct an action with the third squad during its platoon activation, the third squad is now limited to reactions only. So now the Americans call for reaction from the Germans. And the German player may react with any of his units that observed actions conducted by units of the American 1st Platoon. Note that there is no platoon activation required for reaction. The German player reacts by conducting a fire action with the German 2nd Squad against the American 1st Squad of the 1st Platoon that maneuvered in its line of sight. A 2 small arms die roll modifier marker, that is 1 for the Germans' small arms value plus 1 for proximity fire, is placed in the hex occupied by the American 1st Squad. And the German player elects not to react with the German 1st Squad, anticipating further actions by the Americans' 2nd Platoon, and calls now for reaction from the American player. The American player may react with any of his units which have not conducted an action that observed actions conducted by units of the German player. And now the American player reacts by conducting a fire action with the American 3rd Squad of the 1st Platoon that did not conduct an action during its platoon activation. against the German second squad that conducted a fire action in its line of sight. Note that the American third squad of the first platoon could not fire at the German first squad because it did not conduct an action in its line of sight. A player can only fire at enemy units that conduct actions in their line of sight prior to a call for reaction. Note that the American third squad of the second platoon could not observe the German second squad conducting its fire action because it did not have a line of sight to that unit, and therefore the American unit could not react and remains in hex J4. So continuing with our example, -4 small arms die roll marker is placed on the German first squad. That's as a result of the Americans' small arms value of 1, and because of range there is a -2 die roll modifier, so we're at -1, and because the Germans are in a stone building there's a further -3 for a total of -4. The example of play in the playbook states a -3, but I believe it is in error. Play now returns to step 1 in the platoon activation cycle. The active player, the Americans, now activate their second platoon and conduct maneuver actions with all 3 squads as shown here. And the Americans now call for a reaction from the German player. The German player reacts by conducting a split fire action against the Americans' first and second squads of the second platoon. A 0 small arms die roll marker is placed on the hex occupied by the American first squad, and it is 0 because we start with a 1 for the small arms value of the German unit, +1 for proximity fire, but -2 for split fire. In addition, a -2 small arms die roll marker is placed in the hex occupied by the American second squad, and it is -2 because we start with 1 for the small arms value of the German unit, +1 for proximity fire, -2 for split fire, and -2 for the wooden building occupied by the target squad. Having reacted, the German now calls for reaction from the American player. The American player passes on any further reaction. And as the active American player has no further platoons in able company to activate, play now proceeds to the fire resolution phase. And that's where this example of play in the playbook ends. So this ends this experimental video. I will be following through with a video showing the extended example of play regarding mortars and infantry units found in the playbook. This will be a substantial extended example of play between 45 minutes and an hour. This video was made to test certain technical things. I hope that you find interesting the cinematic approach that we will be using, in addition to the arrows and other special effects that the whole point is they're there to help us explain the situation and make it easier to understand. So, I hope you enjoyed this video, and this is Stuka Joe signing off for now. Thanks for watching.